the group is doing well.
Yeah, let's talk about that because that's an important finding. Group leader, group, overall. Okay, who looks at these scores? Okay, the overall score, that's the kind of thing an administrator like Mr. Wessels pays attention to. In fact, he might look at the overall score combined for all your groups, just so he can hold you, and you probably, accountable. An administrator is not usually that preoccupied with all the which group leader scores how much, and is the group better than the group, and is the group leader better, all that. They want a broad. Even some of the boards of directors, Families First submits their scores to the board of directors, which is part of how they evaluate the executive director. Believe it or not, that some people really take this seriously. The board only looks at the overall for each month, not even the overall for each group, the overall composite of 8 groups. So that's the kind of score somebody way high up who just wants to get a gauge, you know. Now maybe a guy like Wessels would look at the overall for each group. And then a program director would concentrate more on the group, but whoever's in charge of the supervisors. And who's a supervisor? Okay, he would concentrate more on the group score because it's your job to get the group score up, right? He wouldn't look so much at the group leader score because some group leaders are better than others, and you get a new group leader, they get a low score. You get a great group leader, they get a high score, you know. But your job is to make sure there's enough good group leaders running group often enough to where this score here is decent. You, however, are probably going to look more at these scores because it's your job to train the group leaders and to make sure they're doing their job. And so you look at the individuals and their training needs and their individual development. Then if you train them and their scores go up, then the group score goes up and they're happy. And if the group scores go up, then the overall scores of the groups go up. And if the overall scores of the groups go up, then the overall composite goes up. So the overall composite, the board loves. The overall group scores, the executive loves. The group scores, the program directors love. And the high group leader scores, or increasing the group leader scores, the supervisors love, and the group leaders who got high scores. So you see, it depends on who you are and what your job function is as to which of these is important to you. Now, to speak to the question that Mario, thing that Mario mentioned, what does it mean if you got a group leader score of 75 and a group score of 55? There are several that this could mean as far as diagnostic significance. And usually I can tell by looking at the tape, but I can't always tell. I can just tell you what the possibilities are, right? High group leader score, low group could mean the best group leader was running the group that day. That's a possibility. Could also mean BS. The group leader is BSing their way through the group. They know how to run it right. They're running it right because they're on camera, but they don't run it often enough the right way for the group to be picking up steam, right? Could also be neither of these. New group members. You got a whole bunch of brand new kids, and you got, you know, your group leaders are all fine, you know, but the kids just haven't been able to catch up yet with the group leader. You know, those are some of the possible interpretations. I can usually tell by looking at the videotape, just because I've seen thousands of tapes. But, you know, an external monitor, you can't count on them knowing, you know, what's causing this. You have to look at it and say, gee, why do I think? I'm the program director, I'm the supervisor. Why do I think? Okay, that's my most experienced group leader. It may be both, a most experienced group leader and a bunch of new kids. You know, fine, you figure it out. And then you know what to do, you know. If it's inexperienced kids, and you got several group leaders who score in this range, it's just a matter of time. It's not going to be very long before this score starts, you know, coming up. So you'll be able to figure out what to do about that. Okay, let's look at the reverse. What if you got a low group leader score, 55, and a high group score? Just use logic. What could be contributing to that? The group members know more about group than the group leader. That's a very common finding. it's really nothing to be ashamed of either, because after all, isn't it our objective for these not to be so leader-centered and for the group to absorb the leadership functions and the routines and the procedures and stuff so that it becomes built into them, you know? And so that's not such a terrible indictment, especially if it's a new group leader. Plus, you know, those girls are in group every day. Every day, every group. None of you is in group every day, let alone leading the group every day. So within 3 months, they're going to know more about group than some staff who have been leading groups for a year. It just depends, you know. So this is not that unusual finding. It can often mean that the group members know more about the group than the group leader. I mean, there could be several other explanations for why the group members know more. You probably have a bunch of other group leaders who are pretty good. So you're looking at one of your weaker group leaders. Now again, an observer doesn't necessarily know. An external observer like me doesn't necessarily know unless I've seen somebody's name pop up 2 or 3 times. I don't know if this is a brand new group leader or somebody who's just no good and been there for a year or 2 or what. That's your job to know. Well, you got somebody who's scoring 50s and your group's scoring 70s and they've been there leading group for 2 or 3 years. You know, that's a staff development problem. It's not going to disproportionately influence the score because, you know, if your group gets observed, you're going to get a tape on your group 6 times in 6 months, and only one of them had a low group leader score. It's just not going to be much of a trend there, you know, to look at. And you're not going to be that concerned about it because you're looking at, we're talking about the higher group score, right? You're looking at the group score. As long as she keeps her group scores up, if there's a few group leader scores that are down, that's not, you know, of great concern programmatically, you know. And Wessels isn't going to care because, you know, one low group leader score in a sea of adequate ones and high group scores is just not going to affect the overall. But it is something that has diagnostic significance for you in training your group leader. What else do you think might be happening when the group leader score is low and the group score is high? Bad day, that's right. Some people freeze up over being taped. You know, see, I don't have any way of knowing that for sure as an external observer. I can just report what I see. Again, I can usually tell that. One of the ways I can tell, just for some of the details for your monitoring purposes, is reversals. Like if I see a group leader that misses a step and they go, oh man, you know, about halfway through the next step, oh wait a minute. We forgot to do this. I forgot to do this. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't give the main therapeutic point. See, that's like a reversal. That's almost always a function of anxiety rather than, you know, incompetency. But again, it's still in the score. You know, it'll help them a little if they mentioned that they knew they forgot to do it. But they won't forget to do it every single time. I mean, if they have